Welcome to HYBIZ Conversations. My name is Suresh Kochattil. Today, as we emerge from the shadows of the lockdown, every client, every company, every organization is looking at just one thing. How do we survive? How do we survive for the next 6 months? How do we survive for the next 1 year? And maybe how do we survive for the next 2 years? It's all short-term goals. At the same time, many a company would like to differentiate themselves from the rest of the crowd because that's all about branding. What's your positioning? What's the message that you're taking to your target audience? This is a very crucial factor because many a time clients get it all mixed up. They think advertising is messaging, messaging is branding, and it all ends up in a mess. Luckily, there are professionals who advise you on this and more. There are big companies today which kind of take branding to the next level. Today, we have with us Ramakanth, Chairman and Managing Director of RBC Worldwide, a company that deals with branding and more. Ramakanth, welcome to the show.
Hi.
As somebody whom I've known and admired for almost close to 25 years now, the journey from being somebody who used to sketch in a small shop on the Rajbhavan Road to where you are now heading a conglomerate like RBC Worldwide, how has been the journey?
So far, no complaints, Suresh. Yeah, it was a beginning, a confused beginning at the beginning. But again, as you know, if you are clear about what you have in your mind, what happens is the whole world conspires to make sure that you are there on the right path. So it happens rather. So far so good. And yeah, I started my advertising agency after my returning back from Mumbai or Bombay at the time. And then I started in a very small way, typical advertising agency once upon a time. And several things happened since it's a very long journey. Now, about maybe 15 years back, we started this specialties of branding and digital marketing. So, yeah, we are here now. I run this thing called RBC Worldwide. We have operated in all the cities of the country and at a stage nearly about 8 years in Dubai. But Dubai was going down about 4 or 5 years back, so we shut the shop there. Now, principally focusing on actually headquartered at Hyderabad city. So, we are handling a lot of Hyderabad and non-Hyderabad brands.
So Ramakanth, when you talk of advertising, because I also spent a long time in media, when you talk of advertising, it's a plain vanilla advertising agency. But those were the concepts in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and maybe a little bit into the 2000s. But ever since then, agencies have actually metamorphosized into something different. They realize that clients are not looking at just an ad agency to do their communication, to do their media management. Things have gone beyond that. How have you seen this change happening from a typical, a caterpillar to a butterfly?
Well, I'm not too sure it is a butterfly situation now, maybe a caterpillar to a larger caterpillar perhaps, cynically looking at. But said and done, what happened is the fluctuations in the social psychology of masses. It's typically the needs have changed. The demand is completely different at the moment. For example, say let us take healthcare. There was a time where a hospital, if it is run by a doctor, they were not actually comfortable with advertising because doctors were believing that they are good at what they are doing and it's a very noble profession. Why should they sell it?
The work speaks for themselves.
Work speaks for and doctors. They are not like any other just work. They save lives. So they are good at what they are doing and extremely proud of what they are doing. And rightly so, they said why advertising? But today is exactly the opposite. Advertising comes first, comes the actual doctor service later. It sounds like a very elaborate statement rather, but again this is a fact. Many today you see the big names in the healthcare industry they balance their quality of the work and also the visibility in the media very properly to achieving near perfection, so that they are not only exceptionally good at what they are doing, but also their companies or their hospitals are in a very healthy financial situation. So, this is one example. And as you say, the professional quality at any given time purely depends on the professionals. For example, the whole system never becomes a butterfly. It never, it's exactly the same.
So as you say, it becomes a bigger caterpillar.
It looks different. Yeah, maybe bigger because I'm seeing the size of the market has increased and lots of players have come into this picture. So thing is, when you see this, especially what mattered, what actually radically changed last so many years, where I could be a live witness, is quality of the people more or less same, but since advertising structure is changed. So there was a time where if you want to become a copywriter, you should be exceptionally good in English language, because English was the principal language of advertising communication. But now these content writers who replace copywriters, they don't have to be, and people don't really care if you make a syntax error or grammar error or any of these things. So and this is something called low attention span generation. So they couldn't care less. They need SMS language perfectly all right with them, and it sells also. It's selling products. So things those kind of things have changed. For example, people like me, to become a creative director, we used to really specialize essentials of creative. For example, drawing, painting, and visualization in a very serious manner. We are all, most of us are very good illustrators. For example, to create a storyboard, I remember my own things. There was time I used to get actually storyboard and drawing, like the way you see in a comic book.
Before you go in for a shoot, you need to have
exactly where your camera is there. When you say, for example, a guy enters the room, is the camera at the top where the long shadow falls before he comes into the room? All those things we should properly draw and give it to the these production guys. Gone are those days. So we don't need it. Actually speaking, we don't need anything. None of this advertising campaign nowadays, most of them are borrowed pictures, photography is already there in the order. We don't actually shoot pictures nowadays, much of them, most of them rather. So like that, things have changed.
No, that when you speak of change, that's, I remember distinctly, we moved from an era where the agencies did everything themselves.
Yeah.
And when you talk of branding per se, India had never built great brands in the past. Of course, in the recent past, we have seen some great brands come, but they were mostly from abroad. They were all the Unilevers, the Brook Bonds of the world, who were coming with their own brands, and everything was theirs. We had one Amul to speak of technically. But over the years, how do you think branding has evolved? Because for a client, it's all about just a logo or a shot or a pack shot, and that's it. They never ventured beyond it. But do you think today clients are matured in terms of understanding what a branding really stands for?
Yes, some parts definitely, because as you say, not only levers, during that time also wonderful brands have made a lot of impact worldwide. In fact, Hero, one of those Indian brand, it made a lot of impact in branding worldwide. And Bajaj was very, in fact, the Bajaj campaign was more as popular national anthem once upon a time.
Hamara Bajaj.
Hamara Bajaj. So brilliant things have been done in this space. So, well, coming back to the actual situation, or whether the kind of comprehension we have, a regular client, is questionable, because as you say, branding is still a logo, which is not. In fact, I always educate people before I start negotiating with them and entering any business with them. I am talking not the top guys who from IIMs and IITs and who would have exposed themselves to the best side of the branding of the world. I am talking about regular people, regular entrepreneurs and all those people. They still have doubts about that. Frankly, branding in one word is actually perception. It's creating a perception. Branding is not actually a result of facts. It's a comprehensive result of, or rather, outcome of your belief, as psychological as that. So, our agenda of a branding company would be creating that kind of belief and increasing the customer connect. So, the customer connect to the brand is enhanced provided you can create such belief. For example, it also makes people to overlook many things. I'm talking very intelligent people. For example, pretty intelligent people buy say expensive watches. Watch technology is nearly what, 100 years plus old.
Yes.
There's nothing R&D they would do nowadays except that adding some gold and diamonds and that kind of stuff. Today a watch is sold for 25 lakhs. XYZ brand, why would people still buy it? So it has a flaunt value, all those things are of course, but thing is we still pay that kind of money. So which means somebody would have made him to believe that this is actually worth so much. And that's what we have done. Yeah, it's completely, it's conditioning more than convincing. The branding also conditions the consumer's behavior. They behave exactly how these branding people expect them to behave. They fix a vision.
So when I'm wearing a Rado here, as much I'd be convinced that I had to buy this Rado at a certain price, which is not really cheap, isn't it? Absolutely. So that is what you're convincing. You're basically taking a horse to the water.
Convincing is logically explaining. For example, I believe the convincing word comes out of if you explain it properly and make you believe. Conditioning is I don't explain anything. You buy it, you buy it. Actually, it happens. For example, I say that Roger Federer wears Rolex. And I say things like, you know, you dive into this sea and you say under this 3,000 plus feet, it still works. Who do that?
Nobody dives to check.
Who do that? Nobody does that.
So it's a product attributes you're talking of, basically.
No, anything, many things. For example, somebody says it's not, it doesn't just show the time, it shows the history. What is the relevance of the such very high-sounding statements?
Esoteric, it's a very esoteric kind of situation.
So people still buy Montblancs in India. They want to flaunt regular people. I'm talking about those new rich and that kind of people. I'm surprised. It's a pen. Why do you want to pay 17,000 rupees, 18,000, 20,000 rupees per pen?
Just for a pen.
Yeah. So coming from branding, it sounds not believable, but I do practice on a daily basis on this kind of stuff. So essentially, what happens is psychological warfare. Branding is typically it works on psychology of regular people, not those logical. Sometimes it also works on logical people, scientific people, highly qualified people. But essentially, what it does is it conditions thinking. That's why branding guys are that important for any product to sell.
So when you're talking of convincing people, it's end of the day, it's a customer, whether he's buying a pen, a pack of milk, or an ice cream, or an expensive car. It's all about conditioning that person, as you rightly use the word, taking him there and telling him that this product is what you need. Now, you must be using different modes of media to reach the consumer, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, right from the good old hoardings to the print media, which was a king at one time, then came television, then came radio, and today you have the digital media. How have you transitioned through this entire process over the years?
RBC has this theory called comprehensive integrated communication solution. So, the effectiveness of integration of various forms is what matters at a stage nowadays. There was a time where we didn't have so many media. There was no social media, there was no digital media, there was no television that strong. At the time, these can have ruled the roost, your print and press media. So outdoor. So essentially, that time also, again, outdoor also very frugal, not very heavy duty media at the time. So we try to connect by engaging celebrities and that kind of stuff, so that anybody get connected with them. If celebrity, their favorite actor wears endorsement kind of thing, campaigns and all that, they used to sell well with smart lines and all that. That's one area. And eventually, the things have changed into this typical social media level and all that. So where today a lot of things happen indirectly. You know, as simple as somebody engages a comprehensive conference. So I realized one of those large scale healthcare institutions, they engage these medical education conferences and they are advertised. And people love to participate because that's education and it's good for all the stakeholders get benefited. But eventually what happens? The brand which is actually promoting sells. So it's nothing to do with direct, it's not sales pitch at all. Actually doing a good job for the benefit of the society. But still they make good, create good advertising mileage. Those areas. Or they sponsor things. They initiate the CSR initiatives. They initiate lots of other things, not necessarily directly sound or look like advertising. So that is one area. Branding is something. Branding is something where it's not advertising. Branding is something which you can actually create a kind of an image with the help of everything. Your advertising, your direct marketing, your typically every possible your public relations. So all put together, you create one kind of image. So that image is what branding, and that's what actually matters at the end of the day.
So when you talk of branding per se, and when you go to a client for the first meeting, as you rightly said, I think you have a huge presence in healthcare, by the way. So how does it take to convince people into kind of signing up with you? What is it that is there that they can trust in you and say, fine, I'm going to RBC Worldwide and I'm going to sign up a deal with them? How does that really happen? Because it must be pretty tough, isn't it, in today's competitive world to convince a client, especially about branding, because their old school of thought is that, it's an advertising.
True. Very true.
How does it work?
That's a very interesting question. What happens, to start with, my portfolio matters a lot because I would have launched about nearly 50 plus hospitals. So that matters. People take it seriously.
Well, that's huge, 50 plus.
50 plus. So
you must have launched almost every brand in India.
Not exactly, not every brand. The thousands of hospitals are there,
Yeah,
but
many,
some of them are, we have handled. And second is, more importantly, our approach is research driven. For example, somebody was worried about the competition when they launched. They have very tough competition in a specific area. I can't reveal the name. So we did a lot of research. It's only myth. There is no competition. Actually speaking, you guys are unnecessarily worried about this. You go ahead with this. Our research actually told that. So research is one component which helps us make that essential difference in the belief system of the customer. That's one area. The second area is, while they say that nowadays people are not interested in creatives, they do. Creatives have a lot of place. Same message, but very interestingly said. With touch of humor or wit, that matters. And thirdly, sometimes pretty importantly, is your ability of, or rather your capacity of understanding their domain.
Okay. Their business.
Their business, objectively. So because of our essential component of research, you have fantastic understanding of, say, as you said, we do healthcare a lot, so we have deadly understanding of healthcare industry, their competition, their consumer preferences, and how they should conduct themselves when they enter the market, how to handle their finances, how to handle the systems at any given time. So we precisely tell them what they can do.
Take them from an A to Z of the business.
So after all this, we'll talk about branding.
Okay.
So we buy the thing before we actually initiate our branding proposals.
Now, in a COVID situation that you went into, there would have been a certain amount of restrictions in working. I'm sure you're still working from home, and so do your team. But how is it that you manage in a situation like this, where nobody saw a pandemic coming? And when you use this as an example also for your branding tomorrow, and how do you tell your clients, look, this is the way we need to operate in these kind of atmosphere, because there would have never been research reports on these kind of stuff happening.
This is a surprise for everybody, Suresh. If I were to say that there is a wonderful, highly scientific answer from my side, I am not giving a justified answer, because it's a surprise for everybody, a shocking surprise for everybody. And what I think is, whatever that comes as a do's and don'ts of the situation, we talk the same. And obviously, plenty of digital marketing we are doing because of the availability, and it's completely system and it's online. That's one thing which we are doing very convincingly with most of the clients. And we are also improving the systems, operative systems at their end. That is affecting their business. And rest is the way the whole world is doing. There's nothing. This is such a shocking. There is nobody. There's no plan. We are not frankly. If you were to say that, are we prepared? No, we are not prepared.
Now, the most difficult part in this entire effort of branding, and in spite of, as you go up the ladder in terms of bringing more sophistication to the business, is the people. Yeah. The people who run along with you, the team that is there with you. Your team is pretty, in terms of the age that they worked with you, they are pretty long-term people. So, is it difficult today, in today's world, to hold on to talent, and is it more difficult to get talent in the first place?
Yes, both two, yes and yes. The first thing is very difficult to retain, because today's generation, I don't know, the people who have been working with me, as I just mentioned, maybe nearly 2 decades they have been working with me, and exceptionally good at what they're doing. I was very lucky that way. And today I interview a lot of people, and we still recruit very regularly, but their span will not exceed more than 2 to 3 years at the most.
There's no loyalty.
There's no loyalty and all that kind of stuff. And it's not a negative thing, it's the way people are thinking nowadays. It's all right. Maybe they want to, that's exactly how they sculpt their careers. So
just move on.
There's move on. So that's one thing. So yeah, both are difficult things to.
So when you talk of branding in a situation like this, and then as we keep moving forward, one question that comes to my mind is, when you compare India with the rest of the world, you have worked extensively abroad also. When you look at where India is today in terms of understanding branding and where we are in terms of advertising. At one time, I remember when I started my media career, we were pretty behind. We were 2 to 3 decades behind the rest of the world. We used to always look up at the Cannes Awards to see what kind of ads come out there. But over the years, has this gap been bridged in branding? Are we as good as the rest of the world?
No, it hurts me to say this, but yeah, no, we are not, because still they are elsewhere. Not because, again I repeat, it's is it because of less creative contribution, or is it because of inability to do all those things? Not exactly. Lots and lots of wonderfully talented people are there in the business of branding and advertising, especially in communication. Exceptional talents are there. What doesn't happen is, most of the Indian businesses are generally family driven businesses. There is no actually decentralization of the companies. There is
no professionals in the business.
The companies, they call themselves decent, but again 2 or 3 individuals make all the differences in the decisions. So what happens at the end is, if you especially you handle large, my experience, due respect to all of them, is finally end up actually looking into his eyes or her eyes and understanding whether they like it or not, more than this is my best job.
So it's a compromise that's
always, okay, they don't like it, okay, let me change this kind of thing. So see, what happens here is, it's never a professional result. It's a result of a mix. You do a wonderful job and you make a presentation and they make some changes because they want to make, they are the bosses, they have to make changes. That change is enough to damage the whole thing. The one change, for example, just increase my size of logo.
Yeah, make my picture bigger.
The whole thing is gone. Whole thing is gone completely. But who wants to know? Yeah, and then you are there, so you still survive. So
but you still compromise because
yes,
finally you have to stand up.
60 to 70% of our clients, they demand their way.
So Ramakanth, when you finally look at the road down this journey that you're taking, and the last 25 years of it would have been a kind of an evolution, and as you look ahead, as India matures into a market that has a lot of international brands, a lot of international acceptance in terms of the products and services, how do you see the branding industry itself develop? Is there going to be further changes, further modes as we move into the next century?
Yes, yes, of course. The way the whole thing is turning into online digital, first thing is fundamental difference, the radical difference. And second, the education qualities of the citizens of the country, especially, the whole thing is changed now. So their exposure to the world is so good nowadays. So the demand quality is different. So that changes, which means, you know, you are influenced by the demand also. Obviously, the demand quality is changing. So that is changing, and radically it's changing. And then we are becoming richer and richer, said and done. The cities are becoming richer. I know about the rural areas. So obviously, the quality of service becomes better, because if you have more money, you do the same job. Maybe sometimes it influences. Not the creative areas, of course. Presentation can increase, increasing the quality. That's a third thing. And finally, it's as a beginning, it's a psychological warfare. It's never a product here and the customer there. It's not that easy. So say for example, you buy a car, at least for a while, it is 3 years the same car you buy. That's true. It can change hourly. The whole thing can change hourly. This psychological things. For example, there was a time, well, when pizzas were introduced in India, they could not really comprehend the taste of pizzas. Today, I am sure everyone likes it.
And they even have Indian branded pizzas.
So point is, the whole thing is changing according to the ever fluctuating, ever changing, ever metamorphosing, as you say, needs and demands of the consumer.
Yeah. I remember, because when McDonald's came to India, they said, no, we will only sell what we sell worldwide. Yeah. But finally, you have paneer tikka and everything that is built into it. So Ramakanth, at the end of, I'll leave it with.
I said is one thing, whether how, if the question is whether we all survive at a stage, they say, the famous thing about branding / advertising guys, they say, if there is a nuclear holocaust, The only thing
that will survive.
Only two things survive is cockroaches and advertising guys. So we survive.
That's a good one, Ramakanth. Wonderful speaking to you as always, and I'm sure that as we pull out of this unlock 1.0 and then step into unlock 2.0, we will see a lot more industries turning to you for advice, because now it's no longer this good old world that we had. There is an before Corona and there is an after Corona.
Let's hope a good old world in a different form will enjoy this. So let's not be nostalgic about what happened.
Okay.
So let's move forward.
That's good.
And then
Wonderful.
Equally beautiful, if not better.
Wonderful speaking to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Suresh. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Ramakanth, Chairman and Managing Director of RBC Worldwide. He brings to the table a wealth of experience of 25 years being in this industry, advising clients on what to do with their branding, how to bring to focus on what they deliver the best. And that advice is really helpful in today's scenario. Thank you for watching.